Hi folks, it's David O on Hoshana Rabbah, really the final day of Sukkot. We're standing in between Chol Moed Shabbos, which was ended last night, and tonight begins Shmini Atzeret and Simchas Torah. And today is a day that is a demi-holiday. It's a very significant mystical day, the last day of Sukkot, but followed by 2 more days of holiday outside of Israel, 1 very packed day inside of Israel. Sukkot. We're now saying goodbye to the Sukkah, farewell for another year. And the Sukkah has served us well. It is the embrace of Hashem. It is the final days of the holidays that began with Rosh Hashanah through Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret, Simchas Torah, and of course, as I said, Hoshana Rabbah. My thoughts today, I want to give some credit to Rabbi Jonathan Reiser and to Charlie Harari. And if anything I say troubles you, don't blame them. The part that troubles you is mine alone, okay? Atzeret, the end of, the stopping from, the gathering of, right, is applied to 2 days in the Jewish calendar. The final day of Sukkot, but really the day after Sukkot. We'll come to an explanation of that in a moment. And also Shavuot. What do these things have in common? And what is different from them? One of the things that Shavuot and Shmini Atzeret have in common are a peculiarity that with no temple standing and no sovereignty in the land, there was really no way to celebrate them. We've talked about this before. Shavuot is not the holiday of the giving of the Torah. That's not according to me, that's according to the Torah. It is the holiday that recognizes the time of the harvest, of the wheat harvest. Tremendously important. The question of life and death revolves around the wheat harvest in an agricultural society. And it is the wheat harvest that followed 49 days after the barley harvest that we celebrate on Shavuot. And we bring the produce to the temple. And that's all that Shavuot actually is in the Torah. Well, if there's no temple, what do you do for 2,000 years? It's a problem. Shmini Atzeret is a holiday that stands alone by itself also. You bring, what is the requirement of Shmini Atzeret is to bring 1 ox, 1 bull, as a sacrifice. After having brought 70 bulls during the holiday of Sukkot, now we bring 1 lone bull by itself to the temple. And if you have no land and no temple, what do you do on Shmini Atzeret? So you could argue that the rabbinic decisions to add Simchas Torah to Shmini Atzeret and to add Matan Torah to Shavuot were essential in preserving them as part of the Jewish calendar when we had no temple and no land. And that might be your argument. And we've talked about this before. But there is a question that troubles everybody about this. It seems that the Torah was given on the day or within 48 hours of the day we celebrate Shavuot. Why isn't it mentioned in the Torah? Why isn't it mentioned in the Torah? The Torah mentions Shavuot a number of times and never identifies it with the giving of the Torah. This was a rabbinic calculation. And I gave you a historical possibility as to why the rabbis merged these two events, because there is actually no holiday of the giving of the Torah. And I've wondered for many years why it's not mentioned in the Torah. It seems so obvious. And people give a lot of reasons. I've given them as well. Well, we should be as though we get the Torah every day, so we don't need to celebrate on that day. Well, we get the freedom the Torah gives us every day, but we do celebrate freedom on the 15th of Nisan, called Pesach. The Torah gives us a great deal of joy, but we celebrate it on SUKKOT, specifically, Zman Simchatenu. We get it on many other days. Why doesn't the Torah celebrate itself on Shavuot? Yesterday in a class with Rabbi Reiser, I had an awareness which may very well make him uncomfortable, actually, but it came from him. The Torah that we got on Shavuos is not our Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu destroyed it. He shattered the luchos because of the golden calf. And many months later, he went back up to Har Sinai at the agreement with God, and they had the Torah, and they brought down and he brought down new luchos. And when did that day happen? Yom Kippur. That is to say, the Torah that we celebrate, the Torah that we live by, the Torah that we were given is not the one that was given at Shavuos. It's the one that was brought down on Yom Kippur. So one might argue, we may make a big deal about Matan Torah in the middle of the summer, but God doesn't. God says that's the time of the wheat harvest. And maybe it's uncomfortable for all of us to think that that big celebration about the giving of the Torah didn't work out very well, frankly. It ended up with God angry and Moshe Rabbeinu angry, and the loss of the Torah. It's described metaphorically as though the bride, Klal Yisrael, was unfaithful to the groom, Hashem, God, at the moment of the wedding itself, under the chuppah, Shavuot. And that Moshe Rabbeinu destroyed the Ten Commandments, actually to preserve the Jewish people, so there wouldn't be a marriage contract that had been violated, but rather it was destroyed. And then we were sorrowful, and Moshe Rabbeinu was sorrowful, and we went through a great period of tshuva and realized how wrong we had been and the mistakes we had made. And Moses pleaded our case in the best way possible, and God gave us a second chance. And he told Moshe Rabbeinu, carve for me a new set of luchos, a new set of tablets, blank, and bring them back up to Har Sinai. And 40 days later, Moses came back down from Har Sinai with the Torah that we have been using for 3,000 years. That's the one we've been using. That's the one we're dancing with. That's the one that we are the people of the book of. That's the book. It came on Yom Kippur. Came on Yom Kippur. And what did we find from this? We found that God had forgiven our sin. And we had a second chance. But Charlie Harari tells a great story. I'm going to make it very brief, and I won't do justice to his story. If you get a chance, read it. It's about a friend of his who said he had done a terrible thing in his marriage, regretted it terribly, tried to make it up. His wife was irreconcilable with it. Right? Finally, through therapy and a whole series of things, his wife one day turned to him and said, not to Charlie, this was to Charlie's friend who told him the story, turned to him and said, "I forgive you." The friend was relieved. Ha! Finally, we're back, right? And he said, "Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. I so appreciate the forgiveness. I'll bring my things and I'll come back to you." She said, "Oh, no, 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 no. I said, I forgive you, but I never want to live with you again. I'm releasing my anger. It's done, right? You're forgiven, right? I accept that. But no, I don't want to spend my life with you." So there's a difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. And this is the point of the Vilna Gaon when explaining why Sukkot happens when it does. Vilna Gaon explains that at the time of the sin of the golden calf, the clouds of glory, which eased our travel in the Midbar. There were three miracles in the Midbar, right? One was the water, one was the mun, and one was the clouds of glory. As Rabbi Reiser points out, without the mun, the manna from heaven, and without the water, miraculously following us as we went, the Jews would have died very quickly. Without water in a desert, you can't live only a few days at best. But what about without the clouds of glory? What were the clouds of glory? It says they surrounded us, protected us from our enemies, protected us from wild animals, kept the temperature around 72 degrees, 70 degrees, very comfortable, flattened out the hills, raised the valleys, right? Air conditioned the trip, our clothes didn't wear out. It made the journey absolutely wonderful. And these clouds of glory disappeared. And the Vilna Gaon says they came back. When? Not at the time that Moshe Rabbeinu came down on Yom Kippur and said, "We are forgiven for the sin." Yes, we were forgiven, right? But God didn't want us back. He said, "Okay, you did a terrible thing. You regret it. Okay, I forgive you. Maybe I'll choose somebody else. I don't know. But I forgive you. I'm not angry. Right? But do I want you to be my people?" And 3 days later, when he saw how we were and how we reacted to the Torah that had been brought down, he said, "Yes, I will take you back. I want you. We're back." Right? And so the second Torah is the keeper. And the sign that we're back, that I want you, right, was the clouds of glory returning. And that's why, of all the 40 years in the desert that we lived in Sukkot, it's only the third day after, or the fifth day, 10th? Yeah, the fifth day after Yom Kippur, that we had the clouds of glory back. And we remember that by spending a week in Sukkot. And we end it now. Now, at the end of Hoshana Rabbah, the embrace of God, which is the Sukkah, is complete. This is a tremendously joyous thing, a wonderful thing. We're back in love with one another. And it's now that it's confirmed. And it's interesting because during this time, we go out of our way to make peace for the 70 nations, that they should be prosperous, and then we bring sacrifices for them. Right? But now God says, "I want you to bring one bull, the one for you and me, to share." The nations can go home, my ministers can go home, right? I now want to have one meal just with my beloved. And he tells us something very interesting. The sukkah with its chachapav, which reminds us of the frailty of our existence, has done its work. And God says, this meal, this dinner that I'm going to have with you, of tremendous joy and happiness of lovers, right, we'll have back in your house. It's time to leave the sukkah behind. But take with you our love for one another that has been reestablished here, that has been completed, the knot has been tied, so to speak. And so Shmini Atzeret and Simchas Torah, which was added, which is just simply the joy of the Torah, right, is the events that come after Sukkot. And what they require of us is to bring the joy of Sukkot now back into our everyday life, back into the life. We came out to the Sukkah to be reminded that we live in God's world, that our roof in our house that seems permanent is not so permanent, right? That our existence, which seems so secure, is not so secure. It is all dependent on the Ribono Shel Olam, the master of the world. And now God says, you've learned your lesson, and you've learned how much I care for you. Take those lessons back to your home, under your roof, and know that your roof is secure because of me. And so what I'm suggesting here is that there's a reason why Shavuos doesn't celebrate Matan Torah, because it actually was, sadly, not the Torah we kept. Yom Kippur is really our Matan Torah. And it's followed by Sukkot and Shmini Atzeret. And also Simchas Torah added by us. Dancing in love with the Torah, the gift from God. So I leave you with these thoughts. I think that they add an element to it for us. Enjoy, to say enjoy Simchas Torah is to diminish it, right? Be filled with the simcha of Torah. Have a great, great Hag. Hag Sameach, good Yontiv, David Ostriker, here in Karmiel, just outside the empty sukkah. Be well. The sukkah comes inside now.